In 2009, Colgan Air Flight 3407 crashed just outside of Buffalo, New York. It was a terrible accident and killed 50 people, including one in a house. Following this, the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, passed two new regulations in reaction to the crash. 1. The Flight Time and Duty Rule Regulations, also known as FAR 117, put more science to how much rest pilots need. These rules are widely accepted as important and necessary by airlines and pilot groups. The second was a ruling changing the minimum flight hours needed to earn an Air Transport Pilot (ATP) license from 250 hours to 1,500 hours. This has become known as the 1,500-hour rule. The 1,500-hour rule is not as universally accepted as being helpful as the Flight Time and Duty Rule regulation. The rule has made it very expensive to decide to become a pilot, about $250,000 out of pocket in 2 or 3 years for people not trained by the military. It also has made it difficult to attract new populations, including women and minorities, into the pilot profession. Most importantly, it is seen by some as actually reducing safety since people spend years getting flight experience in areas not necessarily associated with flying commercial aircraft in a complex system, and end up entering that system unprepared. According to the FAA, there are about 164,000 ATP licenses granted in the U.S. This includes people who can no longer legally fly commercially due to age or illness, and pilots who have not maintained medical certification. Estimates for pilots needing to be hired by the airlines for 2022 range from 12,000 to 15,000. Yet, the current rate of training is expected to produce only about 6,000 pilots this year. This means the pilot pipeline in the U.S. is producing less than half of the pilots needed to support the fleet plans of the U.S. airlines. The biggest reason for this is the huge hurdle it takes to enter into this career now. Prior to the 1,500-hour rule, prospective pilots could earn their ATP with a commercial pilot's license, a minimum of 250 hours of flying, plus airline-specific training. Typically, new hires had closer to 500 hours before being hired. This process created an apprentice-based solution. New first officers were paired with seasoned captains over their next 1,000 or so hours, learning how to fly in the U.S. airspace system, and into big commercial airports. This apprentice-based system produced the safest air transportation system in the world and operated for over 80 years in the U.S., and was copied by virtually every other nation on the globe. Having to get 1,500 hours before being hired requires an enormous financial and time commitment that effectively shrinks the number of people who are willing to become pilots. As importantly, these 1,500 hours can all be earned flying small, single-engine planes in rural areas, or even flying hot air balloons.